Hello, I'm Kristia Ramos, Inquirer.net reporter, and in today's episode of INQside Look, we have Senator Panfilo Lacson, the chairperson of the Senate National Defense Committee. Sir, welcome to INQside Look. Thank you for agreeing to do this interview with us. Kamusta po kayo?
Thank you for having me. Okay lang.
Okay, thank you, sir. We have a lot of issues to cover po. And to start off, we're gonna be talking about how the Philippines is dealing with recent Chinese actions in the West Philippine Sea. My first question would be, sir, you have this denial coming from the President na hindi daw po siya nag-promise during his campaign to retake the West Philippine Sea or pressure China about this. And we know in 2016, he was very famous for saying na he would ride a jet ski and go to the Spratly Islands and plant a Philippine flag there. Now, a couple of years after this, sabi niya hyperbole lang daw po, exaggeration. Pero when you have this denial coming from the President in a time where there are fresh concerns about the presence of Chinese vessels here, ano, sir, yung message na, what do you think is the message, sir, nito sa Filipino public, especially doon sa bumoto sa kanya, precisely because doon sa strong stand niya sa maritime dispute natin with China?
Well, it's confusing, to say the least. First, mahirap kasi sa mga salita ng Pangulo. We don't know anymore when he was serious or when he was joking. So for the past 5 years, ganyan kasi lagi yung nangyayari. And kapag nalagay sa tight situation, the spokespersons would just say, no, he was just joking, he was not serious, and hyperbole, and so forth and so on. So, but it sends a signal not only to the Filipino people, but to the Chinese as well, because alam na natin na yung mga incursions, and it's continuing, by the way. Yung recent nga, di ba, natawag sa Whitson Reef or yung Julian Felipe, di ba? And very recently, ang iniikutan naman ngayon yung Sabina Shoal, di ba? Sabina Shoal off the coast of Puerto Princesa. I think nasa west ng Puerto Princesa yan. So, with those statements, hindi lang armed forces yung nako-confuse. And I think ang nagbe-benefit sa mga pronouncements, yung Chinese government.
Sir, you also have Senator Manny Pacquiao. He's a known administration ally, saying, he told us reporters in a previous interview na nakukulangan daw po siya, sir, dun sa recent stand nga ng President as compared dun sa 2016 na talagang sasakay ako ng jet ski, ganyan. Do you share the same view, sir? Tingin nyo humina talaga yung stand ng President or nakukulangan din kayo?
No, ang humina ang position ng Philippines because we already won the arbitral ruling, and while it is unenforceable because wala namang army yung United Nations na mag-enforce niyan, but it stays as a permanent ruling, nobody can change that anymore. So ang dapat kasi we stand our ground, and maintain that we won the arbitration. I read somewhere, I remember during the very first National Security Council meeting called by the President, we were there in my capacity as the chairman of the Defense Committee. Of course, Senator Soto was there, Senator Drilon, Senator Coco, because he was then Senate President. No, I did a little research kasi baka matanong, baka maghinga ng comment. Yung usually yung nananalo sa arbitral ruling hindi talaga nakakapag-enforce, but ang key is international pressure on the losing party. In this case, ano ba yung pressure na dapat nating kunin, from the more militarily powerful nations like the United States, and we are covered by the Mutual Defense Treaty. Yun ang protection natin. And I think that's a potent weapon in our arsenal na hindi natin natatap. And every time we would meet with the diplomats from the United States, ambassador, political officers, sinasabi nila they are bound by the Mutual Defense Treaty, but it's the Philippines' call, in the first place. If they don't see any initiative or any enthusiasm on the part of the Philippines or the leaders, then who are they to insist na andyan yung presence? Of course, we must realize na sa geopolitics, kanya-kanyang national interest. Ang national interest natin is ma-exercise natin yung sovereign rights over the EEC, di ba? Ang national interest ng US, kasi ano yan eh, channel yan eh. Maritime route yan, di ba? Na lahat ng countries, not only the United States, but even European countries, dadaan dyan for their trade. And if China manages to control the sea lanes, then medyo may disadvantage sa kanilang position.
So you mentioned yung arbitral award in 2016, and in one of his public address, si President, parang ang nakita kasi ng madami is dinownplay niya yung pagkapanalo po natin doon. And you have this statement coming from Senator De Lima. She said, Duterte's expressed pro-China stand on the West Philippine Sea ruling is treasonous and anti-Filipino. Sa pamamalagi niyang presidenta, China ang nanalo. China ang panalo, hindi ang interest ng Filipino. And then she cited that this could be an impeachable offense. Also, retired Justice Carpio also said in an interview earlier this morning na impeachable offense nga po siya. And for you, sir, do you think yung how President Duterte's statements is sounding like, you think it's an impeachable offense?
Kasi ang chief architect ng foreign policy is the President. Wala yan. Talagang yun yung simple definition. Agreed na tayo dyan. And whenever the President speaks, ang dating nun, foreign policy statement.
Opo.
And if we hear from the President, parang yung defeatist attitude towards the, sabihin natin aggressor, dahil sa dami incursion, towards China, medyo ang dating not only sa atin, kundi sa China and the international community, parang hindi maganda. Or hindi maganda. To be frank about it. So, but ang pagkalam ko, treason is a war crime. Wala naman tayong giyera dahil hindi pa naman nangyayari yung, merong girian. Because China has been embarking on this, have you heard about the cabbage strategy ng China? Parang irarap nila yung mga shoals, mga islets, yung mga gusto nilang ma-possess. Walang makakapasok kasi cabbage strategy nga parang balot na balot. So, knowing that, and kung yung mga historians would know na ito yung talaga yung policy ng China pagdating sa West Philippine Sea. Dapat, knowing and it came from no less than a high-ranking military officer of China, no less yung kanilang PLA, So, yun talaga yung strategy. But ang problema natin is when we hear our leaders, especially the President, who is the Commander-in-Chief and the Chief Architect of our foreign policy, na ganun yung pinapakita, then hindi beneficial sa interest natin, sa national interest natin.
Now also, sir, yung before, Secretary Lacson, earlier, he cursed at China over Twitter in demanding that Chinese vessels pull out from the West Philippine Sea. Now, he already apologized, but this is a strong stance in comparison to what we're hearing with the President. Also, Defense Secretary Lorenzana is also having yung mga strong statements. Now, my question, sir, is how can the Philippines balance being aggressive in dealing with recent Chinese actions and really asserting our rights, but still being diplomatic about it?
Well, it's a good thing that Secretary Lacson and Secretary Lorenzana, no less, iba yung statements nila. And I heard that Malacanang, sinasabi nila, they're owning up to the statements attributed to the two officials. Maganda yun, sabi nila, mga cabinet secretaries, mga alter ego ng Presidente. Kung ganyan ang statement nila, yun din ang statement ng Presidente. But, pag Presidente mismo nag-uusap, iba naman yung lumalabas sa bibig niya. So, yun, doon ako confused yung, especially yung Armed Forces of the Philippines. Maliwanag yung position ni Secretary Lacson. By the way, he qualified this apology to mean na ina-address niya lang yun sa Foreign Minister ng China. Hindi talaga for what he said or what he uttered. Pero dahil, Foreign Minister to Foreign Secretary, siyempre, maski pa paano may band yan, nag-uusap yan lagi. So, mabuti may mga ganong positions or policy statements coming from the to department heads. Ang problema, presidente talaga nagmamatter pag siya yung nagsasalita.
Now, lagi din sinasabi, sir, ni President na we don't want to go to war with China. Is war our only option in this regard? What other options can
definitely
we do?
not. No? We cannot go to war. I believe, and I concur with the President. We cannot go to war with China because lopsided naman yung advantage, you know. Sa population pa lamang, 1/10 lang yung population ng Pilipinas sa China. Less than 1/10, by the way. Kasi nasa 1.5 na sila, billion tayo, 100 plus million. And militarily, wala naman talaga tayong match. That's why, as I said earlier, we have some weapons in our arsenal that we can tap or use. MDT, meron tayong existing agreement with Australia, with Japan, and they have already openly expressed their desire to support us along that line. Why don't we take advantage or establish stronger alliances with those countries, ano? And seek their help instead of just parang sounding parang nonchalant tungkol sa claims natin doon sa West Philippine Sea.
No, you previously called din, sir, before na a review of China and Philippine diplomatic relations before. In a statement, you said, parang kailangan na nating i-review. Ano, sir, yung end goal na gusto nating mangyari dito sa review na to?
Well, to send a strong message to China that while we are a weak country, we cannot be pushed around, just like that. Kasi pagka may effort na tayo to review an existing diplomatic relations, medyo strong yung message doon. It came about when 11 senators filed as co-authors noong resolution, Senate resolution, condemning the Chinese government. And I did not sign this resolution. I explained to Senator Dillon because he invited me to one of the co-authors, and I explained to him that yung condemn is a harsh word. There's an existing bilateral relations or diplomatic relations between China and the Philippines, and we will condemn that particular country, whether it's China or another country. Kasi I look up the meaning of condemn. Parang sinasabi doon, it's an eternal divine punishment which cannot be taken back. So sabi ko, baka pwedeng palitan na lang natin ng ibang words, And he agreed. Sabi niya, at the proper time, pagka diniscuss natin sa floor, I'm open to amendments. And just last Monday, our respective staff members talked with each other. Of course, coming from yung instructions were coming from us, And he agreed to change altogether the word condemning to strongly objecting. So, nagkasundo na kami doon. And then, sabi ko, baka pwede mag-insert pa tayo ng isang paragraph na a review, parang ina-urge yung Department of Foreign Affairs to start reviewing the existing diplomatic relations with China, if only to send that strong message that enough is enough. And kung ganyan ang trato nyo sa amin, hindi as a co-equal, parang independent state, we might as well review the diplomatic relations and even consider breaking ties with China. And that could be a strong message, not necessarily ipupush through, but just that act alone, that one country is reviewing the existing diplomatic relations with another country is a message strong enough to at least awaken the other party.
Now, sir, another important topic that we need to talk about is the pandemic. Over 1 year since the pandemic hit and then more than 1 million confirmed cases, ano, sir, yung tingin nyo kailangan pang i-improve at this point in time ng government with regards dun sa response nila, especially dun sa vaccination program natin?
At this point in time, vaccines. Of course, nasanay na tayo sa mga health protocols. As we speak, di ba, naka-mask tayo pareho ngayon. While maintaining social distancing or physical distancing. Pero ang talagang labanan ngayon at ito yung race for the vaccines, availability ng vaccines. And I think hindi naman late for the Philippines to catch up, dahil ngayon nagdadatingan na. And during our recent meeting with the three SARs, kami dalawa ni Senate President. Ang sabi nila, they're still hopeful, even optimistic, na by year end, ma-accomplish nila yung 58 million individuals na, or hindi lang vaccinations kasi 2 doses, di ba? So 58 million Filipinos, baka raw matapos with the help of the private sector and the local government units. Especially private sector kasi right now, sabi nila, meron na existing na 1,200 within NCR na ito yung mga spaces inside the malls, tapos ballrooms ng mga hotels, and ang target nila is to have 5,000 of those. Kung may 5,000 sa computation nila, at say kung ilang bilang nung ma-inoculate in one day, sa computation kakayanin. But again, depende sa dating ng vaccine and the rollout. Kasi yung dating ng vaccine is one thing, but how to roll it out, distribute yung mga logistical requirements, iba pa yon.
Sir, you mentioned din yung meeting nyo with the three czars. Na-mention nila na 90 billion yung kailangan for the vaccine procurement in 2022. You were one of the senators na medyo nag-criticize sa kanila this year dahil sa slow pace delivery or arrivals of vaccine sa atin. Was there any assurance from them na hindi po ito maulit this year since parang mas mataas kasi sir yung budget?
Well, they sounded very optimistic dahil nga nagdadating na and ngayon nga 'di ba maraming dumarating AstraZeneca and the other brands. Kaya they're hopeful na makaka-accomplish pa rin sila ma-increase yung pace ng vaccination. So 90 billion ang suggestion nila is to just lodge it under the regular budget of the DOH. Kasi yung dati ilalagay sa unprogrammed fund maraming issues doon. Kasi pag unprogrammed fund, subject to availability, tinanong ko si Senate President, sabi ko baka kayanin naman nating maglagay ng 90 billion for next year. But for this year, they need an additional 20 billion. So I suggested to them, why don't you discuss this first with the Secretary Abisado? Kasi ang alam ko, maraming FLRs. Alam mo yung FLRs, yung for later release, While merong general provision sa 2021 GAA na bawal yung impoundment. Kasi practice ito, panahon ni dating President GMA. Mahilig sila mag-impound. Especially, parang makikiusap sa kanila yung mga legislators. Ma'am, huwag nyo namang impound yung in-insert namin dyan. So, there goes the, yung quid pro quo na usapan. Ngayon, kasi pinansin namin ito, binawal na impoundment except when the national budget deficit naging unmanageable. Pero merong catch din. Pagdating sa FLR, tuloy pa rin ang FLR for later release. Ibig sabihin, effectively impounded din yun. And kung ilang daang, I think more than 100 billion worth of projects ang naka-FLR sa ngayon. So kayang-kayang kunin yung 20 billion, not only from the FLRs, maski doon sa unused appropriations. Kasi year in, year out, we notice na ang daming mga agencies that cannot implement the projects na pinopondohan. So, it runs to hundreds of billions of pesos din per year.
Puro infrastructure projects to, sir? Yung
karamihan. Kasi mostly, ang dito, ang top agencies sa mga unused appropriations, DepEd, DPWH, DOTR, yan yung DA minsan din. So, maraming pwedeng pagkunan.
Sir, magkakaroon pa kayo ng more meetings with the three czars. Sino po ba ang nag-initiate ng meeting na yun? And why did you decide to meet up with them?
Sila. Actually, si Mayor Magalong stood as the go-between. He called me up, I think 2 weeks ago, na sabi niya, gusto rin makapag-meeting ulit. That would be the second meeting that we had. Kasi yung una, yung nagkikritis kami, nag-explain siya sa amin. And then now, itong nangyari nga last week, yun yung initiative ni Mayor Magalong. Ang mabuti rin kasi mga cavaliers naman kami. Secretary Galvez, P-Mayor din, Mayor Magalong, P-Mayor. So madali magkaintindihan. So I invited, nakiusap sila kung pwedeng kasama si Senate President. So yun, natuloy yung meeting. And they're suggesting baka pwedeng gawing regular. To which, nag-agree naman ako dahil mas marami na-accomplish sa informal meetings di ba? Maski nga, di ba, sabi nila yung most of the decisions arrived at by government in dealing with, say, private sector, sa golf course nga natatapos di ba? Kesa doon sa mga formal gatherings na masyadong maraming formalities. Even between countries, maraming na-accomplish in terms of foreign policy or yung international relations doon sa golf course o kaya yung mga informal dinners.
Gaano kadalas, sir, yung meetings na inaay nyo?
Sinasuggest nila na once a month as the need arises.
With all the senators, sir, or kayo lang po?
Well, kung sinong gustong sumamang senators, we'll ask them. Of course, si Senate President naman ang pwedeng tumawag sa kanila. Kasi ako, pareho lang naman kami mga ordinary senators.
Opo. Sir, ngayon may issue kasi ngayon, si Congressman Defensor and Congressman Atienza, they criticize the DOH for purchasing yung remdesivir worth 1 billion kahit na may discouragement from the WHO na gamitin to for COVID-19 patients. Now, amid the pandemic, may mga concerns po talaga na nire-raise, usually yung lawmakers, on the purchasing decision ng DOH. Do you see any irregularities about dito sa particular issue na to na?
Well, we should look into the procurement system na ginawa nila. No? Kasi kung kinikriticize ng WHO, in the same manner na yung ivermectin, nakikriticize din, pero parang merong double standard. Yung remdesivir, and mind you, yung price ng remdesivir initially, no, from based on what I heard from those who used para sa COVID, parang 28,000 pesos yung cost ng isang regimen. Whereas yung ivermectin, napakamura. And then when dumami na yung, ito mga anecdotal ito dumami na yung mga ivermectin kasi nga merong nag-compound na local physician natin, Dr. Landrito. Tapos may mga dumarating din from other countries, from India and the USA. Nag-drop ng presyo yung remdesivir, para naging 6,000 na lang. So, yan ang mga issues na hindi natin malaman. Ano bang standard talaga ng FDA pagdating sa pag-i-issue ng mga permits, no? Whether it's CPR or yung Certificate of Product Registration or EUA or even compassionate, ano? So ano bang yung standard? And that's also one of the topics na na-discuss namin. Paano ba natin para ma-push yung FDA, ano? And ngayon, I already instructed my staff, my legislative staff, to research or review the FDA, the law that that governs yung FDA, including the IRR, para makita ano ba yung I used the wrong term na suspension. It's not actually suspending the provisions of the law that governs the regulatory functions of the FDA, but more on streamlining. Para mabawasan yung mga requirements na hindi nakakatulong, para lang maging yung response natin sa pandemic mas smooth at saka mas mabilis.
So sir, sinabi din ni Secretary Duque early this morning in an interview din na he sees nothing irregular about dun sa remdesivir nga po na 1 billion. Sabi din niya open daw siya sa probe. Do you think there's a need for a congressional probe about this
I really don't know
issue?
kasi ang dami na nating probe Tapos denial, nakakapag-init lang ng ulo, di ba? Well, I think if ever a probe is undertaken, should be based on documents, on official records. So kung merong basis, I think it's up to the ombudsman or even the PACC to act on whatever irregularities yung makita nila.
Kayo ba, sir, may natatanggap po ba kayong information or any parang insider info about dun sa mga recent transactions ng DOH na sa tingin nyo questionable?
Meron mga information kasi nanggagaling din sa loob, nanggagaling sa mga doktor, marami rin mga hindi masaya, tapos sa mga policy na ipinapatupad ng DOH. And di ba, not too long ago, even the Senate expressed our sense na collective sense, na mag-resign o kaya tanggalin si Secretary Duque. But it didn't happen. Kasi nga, lagi siyang sinasalo ni Presidente. And we're just hoping, I'm still hoping that Secretary Duque mag-iba yung outlook, ano? Kasi before, parang paano ba kumalat ng ganito kabilis yung COVID? Di ba, una nandiyan na yung Wuhan couple, February ito, di ba? Na nanggaling Dumaguete, pumunta na Manila, galing Cebu, tapos nakahawa na siya doon. So, pagdating sa contact tracing, wala talagang utter failure, ano? And then after that, hesitating pa sila na mag-lockdown from China. Yung arrivals from China. Pinayagan pa nila kasi sabi nila kaibigan yung China. Even the president made that pronouncement. So, yun. Kaya hindi tayo agad naka-react. So, maraming mga, sabihin natin palpak na ginawa yung DOH. Kaya it came to a point na yung Senate mismo tumatawag na ng resignation niya. And recently, mukhang okay na naman yung ano niya. Kasi sa dami naman ng palpak, pagka hanggang ngayon palpak ka pa rin, talaga wala ka ng busy staying in your position. So, I think while we still desire na marami pang improvement na dapat gawin, maski pa paano, meron namang na-improve sa ginagawa nila.
Sir, moving naman dun sa protocols naman, recently may arrest order tong si President Duterte dun sa mga police na arestohin, detain and investigate yung mga tao na not wearing their masks properly. Do you support this? Do you think this is the right?
I would support that. Pwede yun kung kaya natin magbigay ng libreng mask do sa hindi kayang bumili ng mask. Pag namigay tayo ng mask, wala silang reason na hindi magsuot ng mask. Pero pagbabawalan natin, huhuli natin yung walang mask, hindi naman lahat ng Pilipino may pambili ng mask. So government should provide. Saan napunta yung mga katakot-takot na yung bilyonis na nilagak natin pondo para sa COVID, di ba? Di ba nagbilihan nga ng mga PPEs, nagbilihan ng face mask. Di ba dapat namimigay tayo ng mask ng mga mask, pati mga face shield sa mga mahihirap. Ang problema, manghuhuli ka, paano nga kung walang pambili? Di ba napaka-unfair at saka parang unjust. Government should do its part of the bargain. Ika nga. And when government is able to distribute enough masks to our citizens, especially those yung mga downtrodden na talagang walang pambili, that's the time that you impose maski kulungin mo kasi binigyan na namin kayo ng mask, ayaw nyo pa rin mag-mask. Kasalanan na talaga ng tao yun. Pero huhulihin mo kasi walang pambili ng mask, parang napaka-unfair naman yata. So I won't support that unless government provides.
Okay, now sir, let's move to the topic of this controversial anti-insurgency task force of the Duterte administration. You already said na there's no way that the NTF-ELCA can abuse yung 16 billion for the Barangay Development Program. Now, I'm gonna focus naman, sir, dun kay Lieutenant General Parlade. What is the implication of him staying there? Kasi it seems na parang ayaw siya talagang tanggalin. Ano yung implication nun, sir, sa NTF-ELCA? Because Parlade is very controversial kasi he's very open on linking groups, individuals with the CPP. Ano yung implication na pag nandun pa siya?
His appointment or designation as the spokesperson of a civilian entity is unconstitutional. Malinaw yan. Diniscuss na namin during yung sa red tagging issue na diniscuss sa Senate. And yun ang inadapt naming position na dapat i-relieve siya immediately because unconstitutional yung kanyang position. I've been in contact with Secretary Esperon and Secretary Lorenzana. Last week or more than a week ago, no less than Secretary Lorenzana assured me that he already conferred with Secretary Jun Esperon that they will ease out Parlade. Pero mukhang recently, kasi only last night, I had this text exchanges with Secretary Esperon. Mukhang merong change of heart, na meron silang sinasabing may paraan kaming gagawin. Sabi ko, ang bottom line is, relieve him because it's unconstitutional. There's no other logical explanation kung bakit he should stay in his present position. Ewan ko ba't ayaw nilang tanggalin si Parlade ron, And he was even committing to me, in our text conversation.
Si Secretary Esperon.
Esperon, yes. Kasi kinonfront ko na siya, sabi ko, nag-usap na kami ni Secretary De Lorenzana. Sinabi niya na nag-usap na kayo at i-ease out na si Parlade. Parang, why the change of heart or parang nag-iba yung tono? Sabi niya, we will definitely relieve him at most before he retires. He is retiring, or Parlade is retiring in July, July 26 to be exact. Ang suggestion ko sa kanya, you know, if you really need him there, or ayaw yung tanggalin, relieve him now and rehire him after his retirement. No? Because by then, he would not be disqualified under the Constitution. He has not replied.
Paano easing out, sir? Anong process
yung term
yung
na ginamit is easing out. Pag easing out, ibig sabihin, slowly, tatanggalin siya doon. Kasi wala unconstitutional talaga. And the senators or the Senate, well, marami kami lawyers dyan na nakakaintindi naman ng batas at saka ng Constitution. Marami sinasabi sila Secretary Pero na nag-consult sila sa lawyers, hindi naman daw kasama yung position o yung situation ni General Parlade. Sabi ko, basahin mo ulit yung Constitution. Dahil ano ba bakit ba nandun si Parlade? Designation yun appointment yun, di ba? He cannot. Tapos sinasite niya yung Chief of Staff nga, saka yung Chief PNP, members din ng NTF-ELCAC. So sabi ko, no. Members sila doon by virtue of their positions. Kasi involved yung armed forces, involved yung PNP. Pero hindi in their personal capacity. Just like the Chief PNP being member of the NAPOLCOM, which is a civilian entity. Ex officio yun kasi yung position mo, member ka doon, hindi yung ikaw mismo, si Parlade. Individual capacity yung pagiging spokesperson niya. Sabi ko, you cannot equate, you cannot cite the Chief of Staff and the Chief PNP as yung parang, ito yung example mo bakit si Parlade kailangan.
Why do you think, sir, they're going through this so much trouble na parang pag-stayin dun si Parlade when it's very clear under the Constitution?
Hindi, tsaka he is a liability. Remember, I remember once, during the heat of the discussion do sa Anti-Terrorism Act, and when he appeared before the Commission on Appointments for the confirmation of his third star, he even apologized because he misinterpreted the provisions ng Anti-Terrorism Act. And sabi ko, hindi ito nakakatulong because we're facing so many petitions. Tapos, coming from one of the implementors ng Anti-Terrorism Act, ganyan ang interpretation, nagbibigay ka ng bala doon sa mga petitioners para gamitin nila. See, it will be open to abuse. Pero sige pa rin siya, tuloy pa rin siya. I really don't know what's in his mind.
Pero sir, magiging condition ba to ng, for example, ng Senate when budget deliberations start na pag di na
I made myself clear. Sabi ko, I stand my ground on the legal issue involving General Parlade. And sabi ko, I am the sponsor of your budget. And while I hate to do it, but I will have to show that I'm standing my ground.
Na pag hindi nila, sir, inalis si Parlade.
Yung defunding now, I'm against it because it's already in the law. And when we examine the GAA, cannot be abused. Sabi mo nga kanina, tsaka referring to my statement. Hindi pwede ma-abuse ng NTF-ELCAC because nasa special purpose fund yan under the ALGO. Yung ALGO is the Assistance to Local Government Units. Ang mag-implement yan, LGUs. Yung less than 1 million barangays. Pagka hanggang 1 million pala, more than 1 million city at municipality. And then up to 10 million. Pagka more than 10 million or 10 million and up, provincial lang yung Walang papel yung NTF-ELCAC except in the vetting of the PAPs, yung programs, activities, and projects. Kasi sila yung nakakaalam ano ba yung cleared barangays na dapat. Kasi ang rito is, alam mo yung water lily theory, pinag-aaralan sa eskwela nito. Ang insurgency kasi sa atin, kaya tumagal ng ganitong katagal, walang follow-through doon sa development. Dumaan yung boat sa pond, tumabi yung water lily, paglampas ng boat, balikan yung water lily. Kanya nangyari sa mga NPA. Umaalis sila, pagka dumaan na yung mga military. Tapos pag wala na yung military, balikan sila dyan. So ang sagot doon, tama yung strategy ang NTF-LCAC na punuin mo ng development para hindi na maging vulnerable sa recruitment yung mga tao doon. Yeah.
So sir, clear kayo dun na if Parlade stays, walang budget ang NTF-LCAC or paano
po? Walang budget. Pero I'll really scrutinize their budget. And siyempre, iba rin yung kasi ano yan di ba? May reciprocity. Ako very generous ako sa hindi ko naman pera yung pera ng gobyerno yun. Pero kung ano yung request nila, additional budget, augmentation, even sa Defense Department, AFP, ako talaga naghahanap ako kung paano sila matulungan. Yung BMMC, yung Veterans Memorial, pagkakailangan ng gamot, kasi tumaas ang gamot, lahat binibigay ko sa nila. Pero hindi naman pwedeng kabig sila ng kabig. That's my point. Hindi dahil sa gusto kong parusahan yung buong armed forces. But, meron tayong prinsipyong tinatayuan din na, teka muna, ano tayo, legitimate naman itong nire-request ko sa inyo na kung pwedeng alisin nyo because clear violation of the Constitution.
Now, sir, si Lieutenant General Parlade kasi has been in hot water kasi nga dun sa issues on red tagging of community pantries. Now, yung Senate Employees Union, na red tag na din sila at one point ni NICA Chief Alex Monteagudo dun sa Facebook post niya. Now, with all of this happening, yung committee nyo po naglabas ng report saying na there's no need for a bill criminalizing red tagging. With all of the things that have happened, ano na sir yung stand nyo on proposals pa rin?
Kasi there are available laws, even legal procedures, available naman doon sa mga sinasabing na red tag. In fact, may mga pending na mga kaso against certain officials of government. Hindi nga lang red tagging yung kaso kasi wala ngang statute o walang batas na criminalizing red tagging. Pero they can file cases ng yung cyber sa cyber security, di ba? Or pwede silang mag-file ng violation ng Data Privacy Act, pwede silang mag-file ng libel, pwede silang kumuha ng o mag-file ng petition ng writ of amparo, writ of kalikasan, writ of habeas. Marami writ of habeas data, maraming available. So, ang recommendation ko noon, which was adopted, there's no need for another law to give protection to those who are being quote-unquote red tag.
Yeah. Now, yung one of the major criticisms naman dun sa anti-terror law na you are one of the main proponents in Congress is after mapasa nito, yung red tagging of state security forces nag-ramp up daw, sir. How do we ensure na itong anti-terror law will not be used to justify yung red tagging of individuals?
No, it cannot be used because napaka-clear naman yung violations. Ang ito, two operative words, two very clear na tatandaan lang. Act plus purpose. Yan ang magdi-define ng terrorism. No? Anong ginawa niya at saka anong intent niya. Anong purpose niya, bakit niya ginawa yun. Kung hindi papasok doon, halimbawa, ni-red tag, it's not as if pag ni-red tag ka, terrorist ka na Maski sabihin kung terrorist ka, wala namang magpo-prove to support yung act and purpose para pumasok na violation ng Anti-Terrorism Act. Hindi ka makakasuhan ng terrorism. So, yan yung mga dinidiscuss sa Supreme Court, di ba? Na marami mga examples, mga specific instances, whether imagined or real. Maliwanag naman na-explain naman
Now, sir, let's go naman po dun sa pork importation probe ng Senate. Ano, sir, yung sa ginawang 3 hearings, ano yung na-establish, sir, ng senators dun sa hearing na yun?
Well, first, yung mga data na ginamit ng government executive department hindi accurate. Sinasabi nila na malaki yung shortage, pero sinasabi ng mga local hog raisers hindi naman. It's just a matter of redistributing. Kasi sabi nila, tulad ngayon, di ba, narinig natin, nag-deliver yung galing Region 3 papuntang NCR kasi may excess sila doon. Mga baboy yun, hindi ito imported. Tapos, natulong ago, may mga dumating dito from the Visayas and Mindanao regions, na dinala sa Luzon kasi kulang nga sa Luzon. Ang masakit kasi rito, okay, meron tayong ASF. Pero, hindi lang nasama sa hearing ito, I got hold of an investigation report, even a referral to the ombudsman
Opo.
na inimbestigahan ng CIDG. Pati ba naman yung bilang ng baboy na namatay sa ASF, pinagkaperahan pa, bloated. Parang ano rin to ang nadaya rin nila sa gobyerno do sa indemnification fund, ano? By way of, kasi nakakuha ng mga condemnation receipt. Isa lang yung baboy na namatay.
Opo.
I-report na 20. Magkano isang baboy? Ang binibigay na tulong is 5,000 pesos per dead pig, dead hog. Yung isang baboy, ginawa mo 20. Di nakadaya ka. So pati ba naman yun? Yan ang sinasabi ko na at the time that we're suffering from the pandemic, meron pa rin talaga mga kawatan na hindi na talaga nagbabago. Yung bang, wag na yung titigil, yung mag-moderate lang ng grid nila, hindi pa magawa. Para bang, tika muna, meron tayong kinakaharap na ganitong crisis, health crisis, nagkakamatay mga kababayan natin, minsan hindi na umabot sa ospital. Pagkatapos, nanakawin mo pa yung pera, di ba napaka-unconscionable na? Parang ito yung tatawag nating insatiable greed na wala ng konsyensya.
Sir, how about dun sa sinabi nyo? Kasi may tweet kayo, I think last week, yung how can the hog, ito nga po yung mention nyo kanina. Sir, dun sa padded figures nung culled pigs, magkano yung, kasi sabi nyo, sir,
hundreds of millions din eh. At least in one barangay Kasi ang yung involved doon, Bagong Silang to
Opo.
sa Quezon City, Barangay Bagong Silang. Nandyan yung record, yung ombudsman na case na ipinay. So, if it happened in Bagong Silang, chances are, replicated ito in other parts of the country, di ba? Dahil ito na nga yung ginagawang modus operandi. Kaya lanabo ko ito kasi nagreklamo yung ibang hog raisers na hindi sila nabigyan. So when this was investigated, lumalabas nga na yung indemnification fund. Ang involved dito sa barangay officials, tapos yung veterinary official, kasi sila nag-conspire para i-pad yung number of culled pigs.
Opo. Sir, taga-DA yung nag-file sa ombudsman. December 2019
Hindi,
po
CIDG.
CIDG.
Police ang nag-file.
No, sir, kasi di ba nakatatlong hearings na po kayo. Do you think may isa pang hearing to look into this, yung na-receive nyo?
Na-resolve na kasi yung yung tariff rates at saka yung sa MAV quota. Kasi di ba binaba na nga ng 254. Tapos parang tawaran divisoria. From 5 na gusto nila, pumayag naman sila maging 10. And then after 3 months, payag sila maging 15. Sa akin, yung napagkasunduan, hindi ko pwede sabing Solomonic o kaya win-win situation kasi talo pa rin yung mga hog racers. But given the situation and parang okay, sabihin na lang natin na totoo yung figures ng DOF na yung basis points o kaya do sa effects sa inflation, parang nasa mga mag-increase na lang based on what was agreed upon. Parang ang effect na lang increase ng presyo ng baboy nasa 21% or 23%.
This about the new PNP chief, Lieutenant General Guillermo Eleazar, and ano yung advice niyo, sir, sa kanya? Kasi yung mga PNP chiefs before him, like General Sinas was very controversial. Ano yung advice niyo, sir, to Eleazar po?
Well, unang-una, on backyard, before you chase criminals, those who will chase the criminals should be walang criminal mind, or malinis, or disiplinado, or na-cleanse mo na. Kasi I remember way back when the PNP law was passed in 1991. Noon, yung recruitment, we found out, or it was discovered na merong isang city dito sa Metro Manila, yung mga nag-apply na maging pulis, mga dating hoodlum. So naglagay ng 30,000 para ma-recruit, para ma-enlist. So nilabasan, nagkaroon na nga ng hoodlum in uniform. Mga hoodlums in uniform. Kasi talagang hoodlum Talaga ito yung mga siga-siga doon sa lugar na yon. Ito yung mga, sabihin natin, mga nag-aakit bahay pa doon sa Tapos, kaya lang nakapasok ng pulis, kasi nga, pinake lahat yung credentials. Tapos naglagay ng, I think, 30,000. And 30,000 20 years ago, 20 years ago, tama, 20 years ago, medyo malaki yon, di ba? So, tama yung kanyang sinasabi na sa recruitment, simulan. Pero simultaneously, dapat yung mga naandyan na, tingnan niya rin mabuti kasi, but you know, at the backdrop or yung bottom line dito, sa akin kasi pinag-aaralan namin ito, yung leadership example, walang substitute dun kasi kung pagbabawalan mo mangotong yung pulis sa kalsada, tapos nakikita lang yung mga general nila, ang laki naman ang tinatanggap sa illegal gambling o kaya sa mga illegal activities, sino susunod? Kami nga, 200 pesos lang sa kalsada, kayo, meron kayo tig pa 5 million, 23 million kayo monthly dyan sa mga illegal, sa mga lords. Ba't naman kami susunod sa inyo? Di ba? So, napaka-importante yung leadership by example.
Ano tingin niyo, sir, yung edge ni Lieutenant General Eliazar compared to dun sa mga predecessors niya?
Well, kanya-kanyang diskarte yan Ang nakita kong edge niya, parang tama yung start niya Pero it should be sustained. Hindi pwedeng puro press release. Kailangan may follow-up ka kung anong gagawin mo. Kasi sa ngayon, ang narinig pa lang natin, press release. I remember when I was appointed as PNP noong November 16, 1999. Tinanong ko mga media sa Krame. Sir, ano nakita niyong pangunahing problema ng PNP? Ako, without hesitation, sabi ko, PNP. You know, number one problem ng PNP is the PNP. And the solution is also the PNP. So that's why ako noon talagang sinimulan ko internal cleansing, pati yung discipline. Of course, yung anti-cotton operation nun. Siguro baby ka pa nun o baka hindi ka pa pinapanganak. Pero yan, tanungin mo yung mga lola mo, tanungin mo yung mga nagtitinda ng yung mga vendor sa kanyang bibiyahe ng mga gulay. Tuwan-tuwa sila kasi nawala cotton sa kalsada.
Okay, sir. Last na po talaga. Mag-resume yung session on May 17. Ano yung ma-expect ng public, sir, from the Senate in terms of legislation? Ano, sir, ba yung mga priorities? Like once nag-resume
una yung bayanihan, may papasayan. And then, merong bill si Senate President yung registration ng prepaid SIM cards. Ito, hindi ito na pa sa last time. Nirefile niya ngayon. And I think that should be supported because alam mo, yung prepaid SIM card, ang kaibigan nito, mga kidnappers at saka yung mga scammers. Kasi hindi matitrace Kami noon, nung naghahabol kami ng mga kidnappers, pagka na prepaid kami, wala na. Putol na kasi hindi mo alam kung sino So, I think it is only in our country na yung SIM card na bibili mo sa sari-sari store, walang resibo, hindi alam kung sino bumili. Pumunta ka sa ibang, hanapan ka ng ID para ma-register sa'yo, maski prepaid yung SIM card mo. So, I think it's about time na, maraming pwedeng magawa, especially magkakaroon na tayong national ID. Naka-incorporate lahat yung mga kailangan para pagkakailanlan. Malaki may tutulong, hindi lang sa peace and order, kundi sa taxes revenues. Kasi alam naman natin, saan ka naman nakakita ng bumili ka ng SIM card, may expiration? Sa'yo na yun binili mo yun bumili ka ng 300 pesos worth ng load. Pag hindi mo nagamit ng 6 months ba, nauubos. Binili mo yun hindi naman perishable yun. O bahala kung perishable, di ba kung hindi ko magamit, masisira. Pero hindi naman masisira yun Di ba?
Opo.
Yun.
Sir, yung bayanihan, anong timeline po nito? Kailan po kaya?
Pag na-transmit sa amin, siguro, kaya nga mas maganda tong nakausap na namin yung mga SARS. Mabilis na siguro ang discussion. Of course, we have to convince our colleagues do sa mga suggestions ni Nadia Caldes.
Okay, alright, sir.
Alright,
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Salamat.
That was Senator Panfilo Lacson, and this has been INQside Look.